we have brought you to Masada. And here there's archaeological evidence, the pottery, and some of the things that were used in daily life here on this sacred hill, sacred mountain actually. Why do we call it sacred? Because of the story of what took place here. And we'll share that with you when we go up to the top of Masada. In the meanwhile, these are some of the archaeological pieces that have been discovered here. Pottery shards, Roman glass, oil lamps. I mean, beautiful, beautiful pieces of the people who once lived on top of this mountain. What you've just seen is just a small portion of the Commandant's house. We're going to show you some more of the rooms here in a second. But the Commandant was somebody who was very close to the king. Now, King Herod also built part of his palace over here. He built palaces everywhere. And this was also a last line of defense, which is why Herod built his palace here. Now, this Commandant's house is very big. I mean, we're talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least 5 bedrooms with a courtyard. Well, 6 if you count this one, which is probably a balcony that you can see overlooking the Dead Sea. It's beautiful. But it's a bittersweet beauty that we find here. And that bittersweet beauty is that when the pagan Romans laid siege to Jerusalem between 66 and 70 AD, thousands and thousands of Jews came, Judeans, to here, to Masada, as an effort of a last resort rebellion against the pagan Romans. Now, there is a very poignant, especially for me, similarity in the history of what took place here. Because when the Spaniards came to our people's shore in the Caribbean, to the Arawak Taino, is almost the same story. The Taino people, to not be enslaved, to not suffer what the Spaniards were doing to the native tribes, they fled up into the mountains, just like the Judeans fled here to this mountain, to Masada. And in the same manner, wives, children, and even themselves committed suicide, killed themselves, rather than be oppressed and enslaved and abused at the hands of those who came against them. The history is uncanny in its parallels, and it's heartbreaking. But many times we hear in America, freedom or death. How many would be willing to choose death, to make that hard decision of killing your own family, to not be enslaved? Many have made that choice. Many have fought for the freedom from that choice. It's a difficult thing. How could we ever know? We can only read about it, learn about it from the history books, but try to imagine if you were here, what would you have done? So where we're standing right now, we just came through the storehouses, the video you just saw, and now we're entering into the gate that goes into Herod's northern palace. So come along.
Come, let's have a bath together, said the Romans. I don't get it, but come on in and we'll talk about the Roman bath. In ancient times, the bath was a very important place. It was a social place. It was something that we don't really have a good comparison to nowadays. But you can see the stairs, the steps that descend down into this bath.
Oftentimes, plans for battles were made in the bathhouses, socializing made in the bathhouses.
Marriages arranged in the bathhouses.
You can see here what's remains of some of the original tile work. Now this tile work was very common during the Herodian period, a very common Jewish art.
You can see the beautiful, what's left of what appear to be columns or maybe they were seats. But, and the mosaics or the frescoes on the wall. But the Roman bath, they would put beautiful, fragrant flowers and herbs into the baths. And it wasn't like we have today where every house has a bathroom and a shower and cleaning facilities for the body. You had to go to the public bathhouse because water was a scarce thing to come by in the desert, especially where we are now, Masada.
So you can imagine the water being hauled up what's called Snake Trail, which was the only entrance into Masada. And it's a trail that winds up some steep slopes, cliffs where you could easily just fall. And it was brought all the way up here. But there was also wells and cisterns up here where water was drawn.
Just picture what this must have been like in Yeshua's time. It must have been the most premier spot to come. Herod was not a kind man, but can you imagine having an invitation to his palace here? The view is incredible. The things that happened here later were heartbreaking, horrific. But this is a place of great history and heartache.
Now we're on the way right now to the location where the head archaeologists who excavated this place found one of the most important, if not most heartbreaking discoveries here in Masada. And that's the spot where the potsherds were found with the names of men in Hebrew. What's so important about the potsherds with their names? These potsherds contain the names of the men, 10 men, who had to draw lots, Purim, drawing lots, as to who would be the ones to kill their families friends, brothers, sisters, and then it came down to 10. And in those 10, the 10th one killed the 9th, the 9th, the 8th, and down the line. Horrible, horrible history. Heartbreaking history. And even when the Romans came up here after they laid siege, they thought there was going to be a great battle, and instead there was just dead bodies. 2 women and a few children were all that survived of the people, the rebellion of the Judeans against the pagan Romans here at Masada. Joseph Flavius said, then having chosen by lot 10 of their number to dispatch the rest, these having unswervingly slaughtered all, ordained the same rule of the lot for one another, that he on whom it fell should slay first the 9, and then himself last of all. Joseph Flavius.
We remember these Jews in the revolts. We remember their difficulty and their heartache.
You know, as Native people, many often tell us, oh, the Native Americans have had it so bad. And we often like to share a little perspective with people who say that we had it bad. Native Americans, including, you know, the Native Holocaust began with my tribe, the Arawak, the Taino in the Caribbean. And although we've had it bad for 500 years, the Judeans have had it worse for thousands. The administrative housing, where all the things of logistics and administrations took place, it was like basically the government offices of Masada. And this was very predominantly used by the Judeans, which is especially evident by the still existing mikvah pools, where the mikvahs were done. There's one, there's another one, there's another one down there. For those of you who don't know what mikvah is, a mikvah is a baptism. So the baptisms were done more than once and still should be done more than once. And now we're going to ascend down back towards another section of Masada. This is a guard room that we're entering into now. And you can still see the smooth chiseled stone that remains. Individual housing, officers' quarters. Honey, here's the rebels' quarters.
Right behind us.
So these rooms that you see back here, this is where the Judean rebels, this is where they lived. We're on the very top of the summit of Masada, of the Dead Sea. I don't know if you can see it through this camera here, but this place is, you can feel it's very sacred. What took place here is one of the saddest stories in history, and I feel that it's a blessing that it was finally chosen to be a UNESCO site, a World Heritage Site.
elders who tell us that Creator put medicine inside plants to teach us what we need to know about taking care of our bodies, and that if we see something that visually appears to be something related to the body, our bodies, our physical human forms, that we should look at that and learn from it. And so, something I've been very surprised to see in my salad has been, I'm here in Israel, and I don't know if it's that I've just noticed it here in Israel or what, but look, when you look at a plant and you see something that you're saying, wow, this resembles the human body. There is medicine. For example, the carrot. It looks like a long, skinny thing, but if you cut it, if you dissect it, and then you turn it, and you look upon it this way, you'll see an eye inside the carrot. And there you have, it is good medicine, vitamin A, for the eye. Here I'm looking at my salad, and I see this. This looks exactly like what I have studied in the human body to be the vertebrae, the backbone. You can see the foramen inside this central portion. The foramens are any kind of hole or hollowed out space. The foramen where the spinal cord passes through, all of those nerves that send messages from our brain to the rest of our body. And then this is the bone of the vertebrae that goes out, the wings. And so what we see here is that this romaine lettuce leaf is telling us salad, leaves of lettuce should be the backbone of our diet. Roughage that will help things move the right way through our body. This is good medicine for our bodies.
Like there's a piece of this Italian or this Malek stone right here. I don't know if you can see this if you hit the tilt on it. There you go. So this is very much like part of. Never mind. That's Chinese Malek stone, styrofoam. So never mind that piece of useless historical information. We will continue with our journey.
So love is a theory, a philosophy, an idea, a word, but it's also a sound, and this is the sound. Yeah, so what I did is I used it as a rhythm because it only has a few letters, and then I made up a melody to go with it.
Lovely.
Yeah, exactly.
Lovely.